As Amber said, my name's Kasey, and I am her sister-in-law. And Amber invited me here this morning to share with you guys a little bit more about an internship that God's called me on to work in inner city Milwaukee. And I also want to share with you guys a little bit about my testimony and how God called me there. And so just a little bit about myself. I just graduated from Western Illinois University with a degree in elementary education. And now that I've graduated, I'm going on to this internship in Milwaukee. But growing up, I never thought I'd end up in the inner city. I grew up in a small town about the size of Dwight, a little bit bigger, and I just always pictured myself living in a small town area, maybe being a teacher, something like that, and didn't really picture myself in the inner city. But God's really worked in my life the past few years in calling me to the inner city. But growing up, I went to church, and I always learned about God and always believed as a child in Jesus and that he died for my sins. But as a kid, I never really let it transform my life. I just kind of knew it in my head and just went along with what I wanted to do. And going into high school, that left me really angry and unsatisfied with life and just not really letting the power of the gospel transform my life. And I went to college and started getting involved with a ministry there called Cru, which used to be called Campus Crusade for Christ. And I just started going to the ministry because I thought that was, what you're supposed to do as a Christian in college, start getting involved in a ministry. And but God really met me in that time. And while I was involved with Cru, I just really realized that I was going to be unsatisfied with my life without surrendering to God. So while I was in my freshman year of college, I surrendered my life to God at a winter conference through Cru, and just really let the knowledge I knew in my head about Jesus transform my life and live my life for God, which I just saw how God transformed the anger I was feeling just into joy for him and to serve him. And so in college, after I surrendered my life to God and he started transforming my life, I decided I wanted to grow more in my faith. And I knew that the ministry I was involved with, Cru, had mission trips. And so I decided I wanted to grow more in my faith, so I'd go on a mission trip and see how God could use that trip to help me grow closer to him. So I ended up signing up to go on a mission trip to Detroit, Michigan. And I didn't know anything about the inner city. I grew up in a small town. I didn't know anything about serving in the inner city, but I just decided to go because it fit well in my schedule, and I wanted to grow in my relationship with God. So I went to Detroit, and God just really met me there and worked a lot in my heart, not only to teach me more about his love for me, but also to teach me more about inner city ministry. And so God really shared a lot about his love for me during that mission trip. And a verse that really stuck out to me was Ephesians 3:17 through 19, which says, "Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. And may you have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, and how deep his love is. May you experience the love of Christ, though it is too great to understand fully. Then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God." And that's a prayer of Paul to the church in Ephesians, just that they would understand God's love for them. And God just really used that trip to help me better understand his love for me and how to share that love with other people. And so it was really amazing to see how God worked in my heart that summer, just to grow me closer to him. But something I wasn't expecting when I went on my mission trip was to grow a heart for the inner city. I went to grow closer to God, which happened, but I also, while I was there, God really surprised me and gave me a huge heart for the city. And so I just saw how much need there was in the city. And so here's a few statistics about some of the major needs in America's inner cities. So the number of Americans living below the poverty threshold continues to climb and is over 46 million people. which is obviously around the whole country, but a lot of times poverty can be confined in our inner cities. You see a lot of people in poverty in the inner city. 1 out of every 50 children in the U.S. is homeless, and nearly 15% of American households suffer from food insecurity and many times don't know where to get their next meal. And I saw all those needs in Detroit, but along with a lot of kids growing up without fathers, a lot of kids having a lot of negative influences in their lives, growing up just playing on the streets, and just a lot of other needs like drug abuse and different things that exist in the city. And so God just really showed me how much need there was in the city, and just the huge need for people to share the gospel and people to share the light of Christ. And so while I was seeing all these needs, God was also sharing with me his heart and his love for the poor. And I just saw the way that God was working in Detroit and the huge ways that he was meeting those needs of people and working in the hearts of people in Detroit. And so here's some pictures from my time in Detroit, just how I saw God at work there. So we lived in a house that a couple had started, and so this couple moved from the suburbs of Detroit into inner city Detroit to start this house, and they used it kind of as like a community center for their neighborhood where kids could come play and grow and have a safe environment to be in. And so this couple that started the house was really just ministering to the needs of their community, and it was amazing to see how God worked through that. And so the middle picture there is me and 2 kids from the neighborhood, and they liked to come to our house during the day, and they would sit on our front porch and pretend like our front porch was a barber shop and pretend to do all the girls' hair, and they would dump water all over the boys' hair to pretend to do the boys' hair. And so the kids just loved to come to our house and just play. There's a picture of some kids playing with chalk on the sidewalk in front of the house, one of the pictures, and there was a basketball court in the back of the house where a lot of the boys from the neighborhood would come, and there were people like college students like me living in this house that helped minister those kids, so they were able to reach out to those boys on the basketball court and really just pour into them and pour out God's love for them, which was amazing to see. And then there's also a picture of a girl reading up there. And so the woman who started this house in Detroit started a reading program in their house during the school year. And so they would have kids come once a week and work on reading and work on literacy skills to help with the education with the kids as well. And then another picture of my friend Amy painting up there. They started a house down the street that they took just a house that was completely falling apart and just remodeled the entire house into a men's transitional home for men who had been struggling with things like drug abuse and just different struggles, so the men could transition and receive mentoring and help out of their the things they were struggling with. So God was really working in huge ways through this couple in this neighborhood and also through many different ministries that I was able to help with and be a part with in Detroit. And so just through the different needs I saw in Detroit and through the huge ways God was working there, God just really placed on my heart a desire to serve in the inner city, which wasn't something I was expecting before, but was something amazing that God gave me that summer. So on the next slide, there's some verses that Jesus sets a clear example for us to serve those in need. And so Deuteronomy 15:11 says, I command you to be open-handed toward your brothers and toward the poor and needy in your land. And Matthew 25:35 and 36 says, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. So along with just all the ways I saw God working in Detroit, I just saw in the Bible how God sets a clear example for us to serve those in need, whether that be here in Dwight, Illinois, or even around the world to serve people that are in need. And so God kind of used those things to give me more of a desire to go back to the inner city. And so after that summer in Detroit, I went back to college for another year of school and realized that I just felt like God was just drawing me more of a desire to go back to the inner city. And so I ended up going on a second mission trip to Los Angeles, and I think there's a picture. That's my group in Los Angeles that I was with on my mission trip. And while I went to Los Angeles, God really just reconfirmed the heart he had given me for the inner city. He just showed me again the huge ways he was at work in the inner city and just gave me a huge desire to be a part of his work there. There's some more pictures of how God worked in Los Angeles. And so these are from some of the different ministries I got to help with while I was in LA. And the picture of me on the bike is from one of the churches I got to help with during my 8 weeks that I was there. And this church had a ministry that they called Mercy Carts. And what they would do is they would take a bicycle and build a cart to attach to the back of the bicycle that had a tub on it, that had, they'd put different toiletries and things in it. And then they would go onto the beaches and find people that were homeless and that were in need of transportation or a mode of mobility, because a lot of people who are homeless just don't have a way to get around or to get to a job interview or to get a way to just get around to try to get out of homelessness. And so they're really providing for these needs of people to be able to be mobile and have a place to store their things. And so we were able, that week we helped with the VBS there, and the kids during the VBS raised money to build these Mercy Carts, these bicycles, and we were able with their youth group to help build the carts on the bicycles and then take them with their youth group down to the beach and give them to people on the beach that were homeless. And so that was just a huge way I saw God working through this one ministry to serve the needs in their area. And then the picture underneath that was us working in Compton. And so Compton each year has multiple days that they clean up their neighborhood that they call the Compton Initiative. And so thousands of people will come to Compton and help do area cleanups. And so we were able to help one day with the Compton Initiative, and we went to a lady's house called Miss Minnie. And Miss Minnie had recently gone blind a few years before and had just had a lot of people take advantage of her. She had had exterminators come to her house to take care of a large cockroach problem that she had. And the exterminators, some of them had robbed her, just really taken advantage of her because she was blind and couldn't see what they were doing. And so it was really just sad to hear all the ways people had taken advantage of her, but we were able to come in and really just help this woman out with her needs. She had, in her backyard, which is where the picture is from, she had a pile of about 8 feet of just like old trash and furniture and clothes and things in her backyard. And so we were able to help clean out her backyard and just get rid of a lot of that trash to help her take care of her house. And it was just really cool to see how people from the community were coming together to help and better their neighborhood and clean up the neighborhood. And then the picture on the left side is from another ministry we were able to work with in LA. And there was a man from this ministry called Americo. And Americo was an evangelist. And we got to go out and share the gospel with him around the area in LA. And it was amazing to see how on fire for the Lord this man was. He shared the gospel with anyone he came in contact with. We went to a Walmart with him, and before we even got inside the Walmart, he had shared the gospel with 2 women who were passing out flyers in front of the Walmart, and they prayed to receive Christ. And it was just really cool to see that we hadn't even gone inside yet, and he had already shared the gospel with people. And yeah, we went in a restaurant with him, and he would go around and talk to everyone in the restaurant and was always just sharing the love of Christ and sharing the gospel with people. So it was so cool to see just how many people are really trying to reach the lost in the inner city with the gospel. And so even though there's so much need in the inner city, there's ministries and people working to help meet those needs, not only their physical needs, but also to meet their spiritual needs. And so because of those 2 summers in the inner city, I really felt like since God had given me this heart for the inner city that I wanted to serve him with that after college. And so now that I've graduated, I've decided to do a year-long internship in inner city Milwaukee to continue with this heart that God's given me for the inner city. And so my internship's with a ministry called Crew, and on the next slide it tells a little bit more about Crew. And so Crew is the name of Campus Crusade for Christ in the United States, and we're a caring community passionate about connecting people to Jesus. And our objective is for every person in the world to have an opportunity to hear the gospel. And so the main ministry of Crew is the campus ministry that I was also involved with at Western. But Crew has ministries all around the world, and on the next slide it has a list of all the different ministries that Crew has. And so while I was involved with the university ministry, I don't know if you can see, but on the very bottom of the first column it has the inner city ministry that I'll be involved with now. But Crew's really just trying to reach people with the gospel all around the world. I know one of my best friends from college is going to Berlin, Germany this next year to start college ministries on campuses in Berlin. And so people are really just seeking to spread the gospel all around the world so that everyone can have an opportunity to receive its life-changing power of Christ. And so a little bit more about the inner city ministry on the next slide. So our mission as the inner city ministry of Crew is to serve and mobilize the church to live out God's heart for the poor so all can grow in Christ to build spiritual movements everywhere. And so what we do is we partner with inner city churches and come alongside them to help them better reach their communities. And so I have a short little video I think that we can play about the ministry.
What is poverty? A lack of money, a lack of education, housing, hope. Yes, poverty is all that and more. At its root, poverty is a lack of options. And nowhere in America do people have fewer options than in our inner cities, where 35% of the population find themselves in poverty's shadow. Meet Amber. She's a single mom working 2 jobs to make ends meet. She just lost one job and is being evicted from her apartment. She needs groceries, but she has student loans to pay. And she has to get her daughter settled into a new school, again. Organizations send Amber donations, hand-me-downs and meals, and those things help for a little while. But food runs out, clothes are outgrown, and next month, next week, tomorrow, Amber will be right back where she began. Amber feels alone, and her world is looking darker every day. She wonders if the dawn will ever come. But down the road from Amber is a church that has partnered with Crew Inner City. Together, the church and Crew use a simple strategy called the Circle of Hope to create life-changing options for families like Amber's. While the church uses resources from Crew to connect with folks in their neighborhood, Crew empowers the church with training to develop families and individuals for long-term change. Each piece of this strategy is driven by the heartbeat of hope, the gospel of Jesus Christ. One day, the church reaches out to Amber with a Thanksgiving meal delivered to her door. Because of their partnership with Crew, when Amber visits, the church is able to offer her training on becoming employable and even give her daughter a safe place to do her homework and receive Christ-centered mentoring. Out of the darkness comes options. But Amber's circumstances aren't just changing, Amber is changing. God has sparked something in her heart she wants to share with others. Hope. Poverty is a deep shadow, but when Jesus walked out of his tomb 2,000 years ago, the Son of Hope began to rise. Crew is linking arms with the church to share the transforming light of God's love. One city, one community, one family, one option at a time.
Yeah, so our strategy as Crew is to partner with the churches to help them reach their community. And so, as it said in the video, we do that through the Circle of Hope, which is connect, empower, and develop. And so Connect is, evangelism's a huge part of everything we do in our ministry. And so we provide different outreaches for our church partners to be able to go into their community and reach the needs of people there. And so the two pictures on the bottom there are from one of our biggest outreaches called Boxes of Love. Like it talked about in the video how the churches were able to give Amber a Thanksgiving meal. And so our Boxes of Love is a box with Thanksgiving meal in it that we provide to our church partners. And then our church partners are able to go into their communities to families in need of a Thanksgiving meal and give that to them to meet that physical need, but then also to share the gospel with them and to connect them back to the church and help them grow spiritually in that way. And another outreach we have is called Power Packs, and that's what the picture on the top is from. When I was in LA, we got to help pack the book bags full of school supplies and then give them to our church partners to then give to kids in their community who were in need of school supplies for the year. And so that's a picture of us helping pack the book bags. But one of our church partners told us how the year before they gave a book bag to a kid in need in their community, and the kids started coming to their church because they wanted to hear more about this group that had given them this book bag. And so the kids started coming to church, and he started bringing his whole family. And the whole family heard the gospel for the first time coming to church, and they ended up receiving Christ as their Savior. And so God's just working in huge ways to meet people's needs of having school supplies, but also to bring them back to Him and to help churches connect to their community and share the gospel. So that's one way as a ministry we're working to reach the inner city. The next way is through empowering. And so we provide training and manpower and other resources to help our churches minister to people in need and find effective solutions to the issues they face. And so inner city churches are placed in such a great place to reach out to the needs in the inner city, but a lot of times they don't have the resources or the ability to reach out to all the needs in their community because there's just a lot of needs in the inner city, and so a lot of times they don't have the means to reach all those needs. And so our ministry helps to provide them resources and training to help them better reach all of the needs that people are facing in the inner city. And then the last part of the circle of hope is develop. And the video talked a little bit about development. We offer adult development programs where adults can come and receive job skills training so that they're able to become more employable and go out and find a job for adults who don't have a job in the inner city. Like it talked about in the video how Amber was able to go receive job skills training. And then we also provide youth development programs where kids are able to come to the churches and work on homework after school and receive Christ-centered mentoring. And so these are two pictures of girls I worked with. The top one is Mallory from Detroit, and the bottom picture is Nikki from LA. And they're just two big reasons that I'm really passionate about working with kids in the inner city and mentoring kids. I just saw the huge heart that they had, that they wanted to know God more. Mallory would ask me questions like, why did Jesus have to die? And just different questions like that. She was really desiring to know more about God, but she needed someone to answer her questions and just to come alongside her and for someone to listen to the struggles they were going through growing up in the inner city. And so I have a huge passion about reaching kids in the inner city, and I'm hoping to get involved with the youth development programs that we have in Milwaukee. And so that's something I'm really excited to do. And so that's a little bit more about my ministry. But to be able to go to Milwaukee in September, I have to raise financial support. And so this summer, I'm working on inviting people to partner with me to help reach people for Christ. And so with Crew, we don't have a central fund to pay our salaries and ministry expenses. And so everywhere from the president of Crew to me as a one-year intern, seeks to partner with people who are like-minded, who want to see the gospel spread in the inner city. And so this summer I'm working to partner with individuals who would be willing to partner with me financially to help reach people for Christ in Milwaukee. And so right now I'm trusting in God to provide partners who will be willing to support me either prayerfully or even with a monthly financial commitment. And right now I'm at 50% of my support, and my goal is to be in Milwaukee 6 weeks from now. And so I'm trusting in God to help provide the last 50% of my financial needs to be able to go in September. And so, I really appreciate you guys listening to everything about my ministry and just the heart I have for the inner city. If any of you are interested in supporting me financially, if you'd like to come talk to me after the service, I have more information I could give you about that. And I also, if you're more interested in hearing more about my ministry, I have more information I can give you about my ministry as well if you're interested in learning more. But I want to leave you guys with a verse that God really used to impact my heart for the inner city. And so in Isaiah 58:10, it says, "Feed the hungry and help those in trouble. Then your light will shine out from the darkness, and the darkness around you will become as bright as noon."